It's Sunday, October the 1st, 2023. You are listening to episode 20, Wedding Bells Ring, of Wes and Shelly Share. Well, Shelly, it's been a bit of a big weekend. Where are we sitting now, and what's been going on?
Well, right now we're in Asheville. We just had a nice dinner, and we're on our way back to Charlotte for school tomorrow. But this weekend, we have been in Nashville, and our son, Alexander, is married. Wow. I mean, that's crazy. He and Grace got married in a service that Wes performed, actually. And it's just been absolutely lovely. We've just been kind of reflecting on, wow, when's the last time we had our entire family all together, from adopted children to our children to our extended family to my sister and her husband. I mean, it was just, anyway, it was absolutely wonderful. And of course, Wes has all of the history on the beautiful Airbnb. So Wes, tell us a little about the special place that we had the service this weekend.
Well, Grace, Alex's wife, is from Tennessee, and she grew up in Murfreesboro and Cookeville, right? I think both. And so her sister, and she went to college in Nashville at Lipscomb. Both she and her twin sister went to college there, and her twin sister is a librarian there now. And so, anyway, that was a logical place with her family. Her grandmother, what is Nanny is her name, what she goes by, who's really, really important person in Grace's life, lives there in Nashville, and most of her family was close. And so they found, because of a college friend that Grace had met, a wonderful Airbnb called Manor, and it is on the National Registry of Historic Landmarks. It went on in 1984. It was a building that was built in 1830, in the 1830s, by a Revolutionary War veteran that was given a land grant of 500 acres, and he and his first cousin, by the time he died, just prior to the Civil War, were the largest landowners in the entire county, which I think is called Harrison County. They together had over 13,000 acres. And so being in the South before the Civil War and having lots of land, that meant having slaves. And so the house had a staircase and an area for the house slaves, and the family cemetery that was right outside had lots of family members that were buried inside the walls, but outside the walls there were several gravestones for slaves that were buried, and generally that was something that white families did for favored or loved slaves. And so anyway, that was definitely the oldest building and oldest place that I had ever, spent the night in, and it was really neat. There's more to it. There's more stories and things, and I'll talk in my WanderLink, I guess, about that. Or no, I guess that was the WanderLink. Well, anyway, we'll talk. That is our WanderLink, and so, but I'll tell about a video that has a little bit more information about that. But nice. We came outside so that it would be so much quieter than the music that was inside the hotel. So, thank you, motorcyclists. It's exciting here in downtown Asheville. Shelly, what was your favorite? We really didn't do an outline, so we're just going to talk for 30 minutes about the wedding and the weekend. We're winging it. What was your favorite part of the whole weekend?
Well, like Wes said, Grace did a wonderful job of planning out this weekend. I think she and Alexander just did a marvelous job. Down to the table decorations, to the venue, to the music playlists. And I think my favorite part was just being able to show up. I show up and help, Of course, my thing is putting out the table decorations and decorating and putting it together. And so I think what I really liked was being able to stay at the venue. It was beautiful and lovely, and, plenty of room to all spread out. And that made it easier because we weren't having to drive back and forth. And, we were there the entire weekend, and we had plenty of time to set up, the tables were delivered, and set up the tables, set up the chairs, decide where everything was going to go. We all chipped in together. There was a wonderful dolly where we're moving things around. The venue was, the Airbnb, they were just lovely, and you could use whatever and move things around. And so if I wanted to move these flowers over here, or move this chair over here, or pull out these candles, or there was a wedding the weekend before, it was fantastic. It was just like, here, let me have access to all of this beautiful space, and then you can move it around however you want, however it fits. And the owner of the place showed up, and he weed eated and he mowed, and it looked beautiful. And he said, oh, well, yeah, well, there was a wedding here and they did this, and there was a wedding here and they did that, and here is a wedding. And so anyway, we just had an opportunity to make it beautiful and special and be there together. I think that was my favorite part, is just all of us being together. So Wes's sister, her husband, boys, and Wes's dad stayed at another Airbnb that was really close. My sister and her husband stayed in an Airbnb that was really close. So we had just the wedding party at the venue, but then everybody else was so close, and it was magical. It was just really magical.
The one thing I wish I had done that Shelly did was she sprayed her legs with bug spray. So I got some little bites that I'm itching right now. But there was really nothing significant that we would change at all about it. The owner of this Howe Manor currently acquired the property in 2018. The previous owner was a doctor who had owned it for 40 years, and it was a horse farm. And so we actually had the ceremony in a pasture at the foot of a very large tree. And thanks to one of my wonderful department chairs at school, who loaned me this little amplifier that he picked up as a portable amp for his guitar. He sings and plays the guitar sometimes at local breweries and night spots, and it just worked great. I had a microphone that I had picked up for podcasting, and we just had to get like 150 extra feet of extension cord to be able to run the extension cord all the way out there. But it worked out as far as being amplified, and we had probably only about 30 or 35 people that were there. We had the rehearsal the night before, and at the exact time, the service started at 5 o'clock. But as Shelly said, it was just really, really relaxed, and we got a couple of the, I guess they were for horse jumping, so they were like mini fences, horizontal wooden barriers that were out in the field, and so we kind of set those up to kind of structure a little bit the rear of the area where we were having the ceremony. And then there was how would you describe that piece of cloth that we...
Oh, jute.
A jute runner. It looked like, it wasn't canvas, but anyway, it was... I'm trying to think if there's another word for it besides jute of what that looked like.
Natural grass fiber. It's jute.
It was a grass fiber. I know nothing about jute. I've never even heard of the word jute. That's because I'm from the sticks. I'm from the country. I don't know about that stuff. We haven't used any voices lately. We should do that. Okay, so I think we should talk about individual moments that stood out that we were able to spend with each one of our kids. And I'll say that Friday night, Rachel and I went downtown to a ghost tour. She had heard about Shelly's sister and husband doing that the night before. And so she got online, and Rachel is a spontaneous person like we are. And so anyway, she was able to grab a couple tickets, and we had a little bit of challenge with our GPS getting there. But we got there on time and got to learn a whole lot about downtown Nashville. And actually, one of the things I got wrong in my video, Andrew Jackson was the 7th president of the United States. Of course, he's a very hated president by all Native people, basically, because he was responsible for enforcing the Indian Removal Act in 1830 or something like that. But his statue is there. He was was he the governor of Tennessee and then became the president of the United States. Anyway, we learned a lot about that. Andrew Johnson is also claimed by Nashville and Tennessee proudly, and President Polk. Johnson was the president, Andrew Johnson, who was the 17th president. He took over for Abraham Lincoln after he was assassinated, and was supervised over Reconstruction, which was not really a great rounding success from the perspective of a lot of folks that had fought in the Civil War. Anyway, we learned some good stuff. We learned good history. We went to some neat places. We heard some ghost stories, and we had some special time. And it was really neat to be able to have that one-on-one time with Rachel. What were some times that you were able to have with different people individually or in groups at the weekend? Oh, you know what? Let me check our time. Yeah, we can answer that question, and then it'll be time for halftime.
I think one of the, of course, in addition to spending time with our own children, which was lovely, I was able to spend time with Grace's sister, Kayla, who was just absolutely lovely. Just the sweetest, helpful, will do anything, very kind. I just absolutely love her. And she was so supportive of her sister and really looking out for her, and helpful behind the scenes. And I really enjoyed spending time with Kayla, working together to pull the event together. I also really enjoyed spending time with Fu. Fu is our son that is a son. Has been Alexander's best friend since they were in middle school, and part of our family. And I really enjoyed being together with him, having some wonderful conversations. Fu and I can always go into deep conversations, and we sat up late on Saturday night by the fire and just, had some really authentic and honest and real conversations. And Fu's always good for going deep. And so I really enjoyed spending time with him. It was great for us because I was able to release control. We spent a lot of time getting set up and making sure it was, Grace's vision of her wedding. But what I really enjoyed is during the event and during being fully present. My sister and her husband were there, and they met the caterers, and they helped with the food, and they cleaned up the kitchen, and they just, they were really behind the scenes. And I loved having them there just so that it released me to be able to be fully present and be, I spent a lot of time with Grace's family, getting to know them, because, we've married. It's not just a marriage of our children, but it's a marriage of families. And so I wanted them to know that, Grace was welcome into our family, and we love her already, and we have, and I want them to know us and know that Grace is in good hands, and we will always honor their family as well. So I think that was some of the just beginning relationship building, and that was really meaningful for me. What about you?
Well, all of those things. I got to visit with Nanny, Grace's grandmother, a little bit more just individually, after the ceremony, and really after I think we had eaten, getting to know her and some of her life story as far as who she had married. And she lost a husband actually to cancer and had lived in a couple small towns. She was born, I think, in Nashville and lived there originally, but I think it was when she was 10 years old she moved away. And so I don't know if you heard this story, but after she had lost her husband, for, I think they'd lived maybe 14 or 16 years or something, she went back to a high school reunion and ran into a boy man who she had a crush on when she was in high school, and he was single and she was as well, and they fell in love and got married, and then were able to live many years in Nashville, and he brought her back to Nashville, which is kind of where she had wanted to go and to be. And so it reminded me of that Lily and John story from Celebrate Oklahoma Voices and Story Chasers. That's a story kind of like that, but just lovely. And wow, to see, she was in the room when Grace and Kayla were born, and has just really been a pivotal parent, really, I think, for them in their life. And so in meeting some of her other family members, I didn't get to talk in depth with as many other the family members. I did get to talk with some of her classmates that she had in graduate school doing forensic science, which is such an interesting field. And so anyway, yeah, those conversations. Okay, well, it is time for halftime. I know this is everyone's favorite part. And afterwards, we'll come back with more discussion about first marriage in our family, in the empty nest. This episode of Wes and Shelly Shares is brought to you by Cook with Wes. Cook with Wes is my, Wes Fryer's, personal passion project, sharing lots of food photos, a few recipe videos, lots of barbecue and smoked meat adventures, and many other recipes from my indoor and outdoor kitchens. You can find all our family recipes on food.wesfryer.com and follow Cook with Wes on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. If you're on Mastodon, and really, why not? Since Twitter has become a bit of a dumpster fire, you can search for the hashtag CookWithWes to find my latest food shares there. Well, I did start a separate YouTube channel for Cook with Wes, but I've continued to post most of my cooking videos on YouTube on my main channel. You can access the complete playlist at wfryer.me/cook. Thanks for tuning in to Wes and Shelly Shares. I hope to see you on social media on one of the channels for Cook with Wes.
It was actually welcome back after that lovely barbecue commercial. So hopefully you're all checking out Wes's barbecue videos because they are truly amazing. Look for all the little cameos from the golden noses that happen to show up. So what I really loved about this wedding was that it was small and it was intimate. And I don't know, maybe this is full share out that maybe not everybody knows, but I've actually been married 3 times. So Wes, of course, and I have the children and the 3 children. And but for those of you who know, my first marriage was very small and very intimate. I was about to go work in Germany, and there wasn't a whole lot of time, and so we actually put a wedding together in about a week, and it was small and it was lovely and it was family oriented, and I loved it. Unfortunately, that wedding did not last a year, and that was really hard. But I think my point being that small and intimate weddings would always be my choice. My second marriage was to my husband Adam, and it was actually in a hospital chapel, and it was also just family and doctors and the people that were important. Wes died about a month after that. Adam died about a month after that. And then Wes and I got married and in the church and had the full reception and white dress and the whole thing. Sabers from the Air Force Academy and all of that. But I think my favorite part of all of those weddings, and they were all wonderful, was that family was present. It was really about family. It's not what weddings are typically now. It seems like the cultural trend now is to spend thousands and thousands of dollars and invite a lot of people, and you may or may not even remember it the next day. And so I think the favorite thing that I loved about this wedding was it was very intentional. The bride and the groom planned it all. It was exactly what they wanted, and that's what we kept telling them. This is your wedding. You need to have the wedding that you want. And I think one of the most special things is that they asked Wes to officiate the wedding. So Wes, why don't you tell us a little about what it felt like to officiate your son's wedding?
Well, I'm glad I was able to hold it together. Just a little bit of emotion right before the vows. Isn't that a lovely sound of that car horn going off?
Said the music was
Well, the music was going to be loud in there, but so we had a couple FaceTime calls. Shout out to a couple people. We have a wonderful former pastor, Fran, in our Sunday school class who had shared some scripts that she had used. She was a longtime Presbyterian minister. But then Shelly Holly, who is really like a part of our family too. In fact, I didn't remember this, but when Trudy and Max were married in Mom and Dad's house in Manhattan, Kansas, 1515 Leavenworth, in the living room, that was the first marriage that Shelly Holly officiated. Shelly had been the youth director at our church, First Presbyterian Church, and there had been some really, really difficult personnel things that had happened, and she left the church and was sponsored by my parents and some other families in the church to go to seminary and to support her. She even lived with my parents for a while. I don't know if Trudy was living there at the time when that happened, but really, drew close to our family. And so anyway, she is a pastor out in, near Colby, Kansas. I think it's a smaller town actually than Colby. She officiates, I think, at 2 different congregations. But she is just a lovely and wonderful soul, and she was the co-pastor at Mom's memorial service in February. And then here in August, when we went out to the Air Force Academy and interred Mother's ashes in the cemetery there, she did a lovely memorial service. So she had also shared a script, and it was mainly her script that we used as a basis for it. And so it's interesting. Alex and Grace, had some clear ideas as far as what they wanted to do. I certainly knew that I didn't want to include some of the more patriarchal, traditional parts of a wedding. We weren't going to say, man and wife. We weren't going to, even, and as Shelly talked about, even at the end where it's like, you may now kiss the bride, and that's one thing with Shelly, that till death do you part. Anyway, I think we said, as long as you both shall live. Anyway, the vows, it was an honor to be able to do that. I was thankful for the technology because, in fact, Sarah and Robbie, I think, were talking about being at a wedding, or maybe it was just Sarah by herself. Sarah's been in a lot of weddings recently, graduated from college. She's been a bridesmaid and been present in a bunch. And I think they were both at a wedding recently where they could not hear a thing. They were, very close to the front. And so, anyway, of course, I was glad that happened. That the amplification worked and being outside and everything. I was concerned it might be a little bit too long. And so, of course, as I did with my mother's obituary, and I think with the message that I shared at her memorial, I used ChatGPT to tighten up my writing and to get some feedback and to shorten it. And so I think I used some verses from First John, I think was the first verse, anyway, and then some verses from Colossians. And so it did a nice job, tightening it up. And, I think there's probably a balance that you strike between not wanting it to be so fast, right? Because the main thing is they're going to say vows and they're going to kiss and we're going to cheer. And that's the culmination of it all. It's wanting to personalize it. One of the things that I liked that they wanted was to give some background, because there were guests, that were friends of Grace's, that didn't know Alexander and know our family and any background. And similarly, our family knew a little about Grace, but that was, I think, a good, meaningful part to include as well. And so, it was wonderful, and I'm thankful it didn't rain, and the weather was beautiful. And what a great time to be in Nashville! I mean, it was just an absolutely perfect weather-wise. We had the supermoon, and I think it was just a little bit smaller, than the supermoon, but it was just a perfect autumn weekend of beautiful weather, some heavy dew. There was actually a lot of spiders in the field we found as we were, setting up chairs and stuff. But nothing, I think, that I would change, other than having some bug spray on my legs. So, as the mother of the groom, do you think this lived up to your expectations, met your expectations? What were you expecting kind of going into this? And how do you feel as the empty nest parent, now having a married bird who's left the empty nest and gotten hitched?
Well, I will say it feels absolutely wonderful. I am 100% sure that Alexander and Grace are marrying for love. And because they just complement each other so well, they're interested in the same things. As you said in the background information, yeah, thank you. Grace makes Alexander laugh, and that's not an easy thing to do. I only know of a couple people that can make Alexander laugh, and the other is his best friend Fu. So, who was there? And so I feel so good about their relationship, and I also feel good about, this is my first opportunity to get to be a mother-in-law and to model that and to build relationship. But you know what? I feel like that's what Wes and I are really strive for. We're really intentional about building relationship and making sure that they know that we honor and respect them as individuals, and that we will support whatever decisions that they make. And so, anyway, I think it was wonderful. As the mother of the bride, I think I said this earlier, it was wonderful just to show up. It was comfortable. Everything except my high heel shoes. I did wear them through the ceremony, and then I promptly took them off and put on my sandals. So, and that was great too. I tell you, by the time after Grace and Alexander had left and things were winding down, I was like, okay, can I go put my pajamas on? And again, this is why it's so wonderful to be in the venue. I just walked upstairs, I washed my face, I put my pajamas on, and I came back downstairs and was able to just continue having wonderful talks around the campfire. So I thought it was fantastic.
One of the things, and for those of you, I think Philip Cummings, we need to make a trip to Atlanta. Our friend Philip is, you haven't met him yet, and his wife, but he's one of our listeners who's given us some feedback, and I think they're in somewhat similar circumstances in terms of ages of kids. My wife, Shelly, is extremely wise, and one of the things that she was able to share as our kids have been dating, in high school and college, is you never know what relationships are going to become serious. And it's not like I was on the edge of, I think, saying anything absolutely terrible, but, I have certainly wanted our kids to have experiences dating and, I think sometimes if people end up sort of dating one person and then they get married, there's all kinds of situations. Those kind of things can work out. There's all kinds of different situations. It's just impossible to generalize. But I think this piece of wisdom is really good, and that is to recognize that, any of these relationships from high school on, can become very serious. And one of the things that's been wonderful, it was great this weekend in spending time with Robbie, with Sarah's boyfriend, and it has been all of our kids are in serious relationships at this point, it's really wonderful when you get to break bread. This summer when we were able to go to the beach and, spend time together, it just, it deepens your opportunity to really get to know them and then getting to see them in different circumstances and whatever. So, yep, be careful, be wary of what you say, even if something is upsetting, at some point or whatever. And I think in having a grace-filled heart and a forgiving heart, and that's important. And it's a new role as the kids get older and they are making decisions and bringing people home and, deciding who it is that they want to spend time with. And it's really a gift when they do bring somebody home and you can meet them and having opportunities to be able to spend time together, whether it's meals together or, sometimes trips and stuff like that. We just look forward, I think, to more of that. That's just a gift. And it really was so special for us to be able to have all of our kids together and our family. And I had an absolutely wonderful conversation with my sister, probably the deepest and best conversation I've ever had with her in our lives. Seriously. I mean, it just happened that because we had the time, and we lost our mother last Christmas Eve, and there's just a lot of different experiences and things that have happened, and it's just really, really great to connect. And so we're looking forward to Christmas. We're looking forward to Thanksgiving, but we're looking forward to Christmas as well, and the chance to be with family some more. So last question, Shelly, and then we'll have to do our WanderLinks and WonderLinks and wrap up. Any advice that you would give someone who, like us, is facing, first marriage of the child? I know that you were very intentional in wanting to cultivate and build a relationship with Grace, not knowing that they were going to be engaged. But, again, you just, maybe you had a sense of that, but you never know. But, I mean, you've always wanted to cultivate and build those good relationships, and recognizing that the time that you have together is, it's precious and it matters in all of the things that we say and do. So any advice that you'd have for others?
Well, I think Wes covered mainly most of the advice is begin building relationships early, getting to know the prospective spouse. And I didn't even ever think of her as that. I just knew that she was really important in Alexander's life. And because she was really important to him, then she became really important to us. And so whether they had gotten married or not, I had already decided that she was special. And we've always been supportive of the people supportive of our children and trusting them to date someone and have a relationship with someone that they care about. And so I think Wes said too, honoring that and trusting our children. And I do think that that's really important. And then also seeing them as their own individual, not just an extension from our child, but seeing them as an individual and supporting them. So I do think that that's really important, is to, we have spent 25 years raising Alexander, and we know the kind of man that he is and has become, and we trust him. And I think giving them permission to be who they are, let them tell us who they are, and not putting a whole lot of outside pressure on them to make it something that we want. I think from the very beginning, we said, this is your wedding. You do it the way you want. We will support you any way that we can. We are always here for you. And this traffic noise is just driving me nuts. But Wes, take us into our WanderLink.
Okay. I'll say one last thing, and that is, I think it's so important that we give our children the space to grow. Yes. That we don't assume that the person they are today is exactly in every way the same person that they were before. If they've made mistakes, if they've had some kind of a tendency or a pattern of behavior or whatever, I know that was something that at certain times in my life, caused some frustration, because I realized, hey, I am not that same person, I mean, I am, but I'm different. And so I think that, that is really important in, as Shelly said, letting our children tell us who they are and letting them grow into the people that, we believe God has, created them to be. So, okay, so we got a WanderLink and a WonderLink. The WanderLink is going to be the House Manor, and I'll include a link in the description here of our podcast that I recorded about an 11-minute video at the end of our cleanup time today, just, touring a little bit, telling some of the historical facts, and actually going over to the cemetery and reflecting a little bit. So that is and then it's an Airbnb. It's also available sometimes for long-term rental. And so it may or may not, if you're listening to this, be available as an Airbnb, but it is now. And just a fantastic wedding venue, and so cool. I mean, I'd love to go back there, but nothing better than really being there with your family and being able to fully enjoy that for multiple days. So highly recommend. I mean, it was like a destination wedding. We didn't go to the Caribbean, and something like that, but we went to a very amazing destination. And so that is our WonderLink. But our WanderLink is...
No, that was our WanderLink.
That was the WanderLink, right. These get mixed up. But Shelly has the WonderLink.
So our WonderLink is one of my very favorite podcasts called Are We There Yet? By Brendan Bird, who is a space journalist. They're usually about 30 minutes long. And whether you are a space geek like myself or you just want to know what's going on in the world currently on space education, or not even education, just space, I highly recommend it. But he was interviewing an author, wish I could remember her name, but it's called The Six. I'm sure Wes will put it in our show notes. It's called The Six, and it's about the original 6 female astronauts. And
U.S.
The United States original 6 astronauts. Well, they had a woman fly in space. But anyway, Sally Ride being the first female astronaut to go into space, which I guess I'd always known about Sally Ride, but I really didn't know anything about her story. And so curious, I mean, we bought the book because I wanted to give it to Rachel, and then I started reading it on our way there. I'm going to go ahead and get the Kindle version so I can finish it because I gave it to Rachel. But, I mean, so fascinating. Here is all of this history. These women became astronauts in the late 70s as a part of our shuttle missions, and NASA became very intentional about wanting astronauts of color and then female astronauts as well, and that's a huge history as well. Just took so many years, way too many years, for NASA to become diverse. But one thing that was just absolutely fascinating was one of the astronauts was from Murfreesboro, which is actually where Grace is from. So I was like, oh man, this is cool. And then another astronaut, she was the sister of one of the teachers that Alexander and Sarah both had at Classen. Her name is Shannon Lucid, but previously her maiden name was Wells. And so Shannon Wells was the sister of Mr. Wells, who was a history teacher at Classen in Oklahoma City. Shannon was actually born in Shanghai, China, but I think when she was 12 years old, they moved to Bethany, Oklahoma. So, and I had always heard that Mr. Wells' sister was an astronaut, but I don't think I ever really dug into that. Yes, she was one of the original 6 female astronauts. And anyway, so I highly recommend the book. It's wonderful. It's an easy read. But man, that's one thing that's been very eye-opening to myself and to Wes too. It's just how much we don't know about our own history. And how much, even though I love space, how much I don't know about our own space history. So, Wes will put that book in. It's called The Six, and it's just a really fascinating read, whether you're a space geek or not. It's just great to know the history of women in our NASA space program.
All right, so we've gone a little bit longer than we thought. We've got to hop in the car and drive back to Charlotte because we have some doggies that are ready for us to get home. So we encourage you to go to Shelly's website, which is shellyfryer.com/podcast. Wherever you're listening to the podcast, hopefully you can find the description, and in the links you'll be able to get back there. There are links to follow us on social media. Shelly's mainly active on Facebook. I'm kind of ridiculously active on about 6 different platforms, but you can go to wesfryer.com/after, and I've got links to all of those, including, of course, Cook with Wes. But we appreciate you listening. Big shout out to our friends, the Leards and the Cummings, or at least Philip, who I think probably are listening. And if you are a listener, we would love to hear from you. So there's some ways that you can reach out to us on that link as well. shellyfryer.com/podcast. So until next time, we encourage you to, gosh, it's been so long since we said this, go outside, be curious, and
have adventures.
Yep, that's good.
It's close enough.
Keep exploring. But you know what? It's all the same. Adventures and exploring. It's what we want to do together. All right. Take care, everyone.
All right.
Wes and Shelly Share is a weekly podcast recorded and published on Sundays by Wesley and Shelly Fryer of Matthews, North Carolina. Learn more and find links to connect on social media to Wes and Shelly by visiting shellyfryer.com/podcast. Content on this podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Only 3.0 license. The Wes and Shelly Share podcast is recorded and published with Anchor and distributed on all major podcast channels, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, and more. Please share our show on social media and tell others about us. Let us know on Facebook or via other means what you like about the show, that you're listening, and if you have any suggestions for future episodes. Stay curious, go outside, and keep exploring.